Hello viewers, welcome to Ekam Academy. So today, as part of our discussion, we are going to discuss about flow test. This is an important concept we are coming so often in the news. If you have seen, every state assembly, because of political turmoils, they are facing this issue of flow test. So what is a constitutional provision related to flow test? Why this flow test has been controversial? What are the recent Supreme Court judgments in this context, and much more important things we are going to discuss as part of this video. Stay tuned. So we are going to discuss why it is in news, what is the meaning of flow test, why it is actually important, and what are the constitutional provisions related to it, what are the Supreme Court recommendations in various cases, and what is the voting process done in case of a flow test. Okay, so why this forms part of your GS paper 2 in mains under polity and constitutional provisions. So what is a flow test? If you have seen, Jharkhand State Assembly have conducted a flow test, okay, so to show whether the government is having majority or not in the assembly. So that is why this issue is in news. Then if you have seen, what is a flow test? Okay, the main fundamental bedrock of any parliamentary democracy is collective responsibility, and that is there. So if you see any person, okay, so like any government to survive, they should have majority in the lower house, that is Lok Sabha, or in the state legislative assembly. In case if they doesn't enjoy majority in the assembly or in the lower house, then it has to resign. Okay, so till then only the government can enjoy all the majority. But why this flow test concept is coming so often in news? Because if you have seen, so much of changes is happening in different state governments in terms of political power sharing or seat sharing or something. Okay, so they are changing their shifts, or they're changing their stance to another parties, and that there are IRAMs and GAYARAMs that we are observing in the recent times. So when this is happening, what is the main thing is how to show the majority or how to show confidence in the government. So that is there mainly conducted through this flow test. Flow test is nothing but all the legislators of the house will be called on, so to show their majority, whether the government which is there, it is having the majority, or the people who are voted or showing that they lack the confidence in the government. Okay, that is a concept of flow test. So who have the power to conduct this flow test? Again, because if you have observed, in the state level, governor has the power to prorogue, summon and dissolve the lower house. At the same time, at the center level, it is the President of India who can summon, prorogue and dissolve the Lok Sabha. So the persons who have the power to conduct this flow test is the governor and President of India, okay, at the respective levels. Then another question is whether they can do their conduction of this flow test on their own, or they have to follow any advice of the Council of Ministers. Means yes, this was what highlighted by Supreme Court in many cases also. So what did Supreme Court say? So governor or the president, when they are calling for a flow test, they cannot act upon their own discretion, but they have to act only on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. That means when the Council of Ministers suggests a date and time and place, only that has to be conveyed by the governor or the president to the legislators of the house. Okay, that means there is no personal discretion that is there for the governor or the President of India in this regard. Okay, so now let us see what is the flow test. Flow test is nothing but primarily taken whether this executive enjoys the confidence of legislature. This is what the fundamental principle of any parliamentary democracy, that is executive being responsible to the legislature of the house. So this is happening both in the parliament as well as state assemblies. Okay, this can happen anywhere. So this is a constitutional mechanism, means directly provided under the constitution, when a chief minister appointed by the governor can be asked to prove a majority on the floor of the house. If you have remembered, there are some instances in case of hung assembly, the governor can have discretion, but in case if an office like a chief minister or prime minister in office die, okay, then there is another person who is coming to the forefront and saying that I am having majority. At that point of time, governor or president can appoint them directly as the chief minister or prime minister, and then afterwards they can give them a chance to prove their majority in the floor of the house. That is what we consider as flow test. Okay, then you can see flow test is nothing but a motion introduced in the assembly to determine the ruling government is having confidence of the legislature or not. In case if it is not having confidence, then they have to resign. Then you can see under Article 174 of the Constitution, governor has the power to prorogue. Prorogue means call the house to an end. Okay, summon means you are calling the houses to sit for some sitting. Okay, then dissolving means completely ending the life of the lower house. So this power is there with the governor at the state level and with the President of India at the central level. Then what are the constitutional provisions? Under Articles 175 clause 2 of Indian Constitution, governor is having the power to summon the houses. Summon means they can call for a special session, and in that session they can call for a floor test to prove the majority. Until unless they have majority, no government can sustain. Okay, so that is what you have to keep in mind. So this is at the central level with the President of India. Then Article 163 of Indian Constitution, what is it saying? Governor can exercise the power only above, okay, whatever the power to call this flow test, this is only there on the aided advice of the Council of Ministers. It is not on his personal discretion. Okay, so you know, next Article 164 of Indian Constitution is suggesting that Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the Legislative Assembly. Okay, so they have to be collectively responsible to the Assembly and individually responsible to the Governor at the state level. Similarly, at the union level, the Lok Sabha has to be collectively all the Council of Ministers have to be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha and individually responsible to the President of India. Okay, so and if they don't enjoy the legislative support, they has to step down. Okay, in case if the government couldn't prove its majority. Okay, so how this thing can happen? If opposition passes a no confidence motion and that no confidence motion gets passed, then the government has to step down, or in case if there is a question of majority, then government can introduce motion of confidence and it can show its majority in the House. At that point of time, if they fail to pass the motion of confidence, then government has to step down in these two instances. Okay, then what are the Supreme Court judgments related to this flow test? If you have seen SR Bommai case, where the this person, okay, he was removed from the post of Chief Minister without consulting, okay, or without giving him a chance for conducting the flow test by the governor. When he approached the Supreme Court, this discretion of governor, okay, does not apply to the hung assembly. That was what the Supreme Court has given in its verdict in this particular case, and it also laid emphasis that flow test in the House have to be convened, or it has to be conducted within 48 hours. But in case if there is some timeline, okay, so they have to extend, they can even extend to 15 days. Okay, this is a maximum time so that legislature can decide, and the governor's discretion should merely only be a trigger point. Okay, so you can see in Rameshwar Prasad judgment, a governor, okay, cannot shut out this post poll alliances. Okay, in case if multiple parties after elections they form an alliance and they show that we want to form the government, governor cannot rule out that option also. That was outlined in this judgment. And unsubstantiated claims of horse trading or corruption, this cannot be cited as a reason for dissolving the assembly. So now in the recent times we are coming across so much of horse trading among MLAs, MPs of different parties. Okay, so this cannot be cited as a ground to dissolve the existing assembly or newly formed assembly. Then in Shamsher Singh versus State of Punjab case, in this case 7-judge constitutional bench said president and governor, that the custodians of the executive, okay, so they have to act only on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, but not on their own personal discretion. Okay, then in Nabam Rebia judgment case, this is a famous case that happened in 2016 with respect to Arunachal Pradesh Assembly. In this case, what did Supreme Court say? That is, it has quoted the words of Ambedkar. So he said governor by himself has no functions mentioned under the Constitution of India, certainly, but there are some duties. He doesn't have any power, but he has some duties to perform. So that is what means he have to abide by this Article 163, following the aid and advice of Council of Ministers, but he doesn't have any own discretion or own function. Okay, he cannot decide anything on his own. That is what the opinion of Ambedkar in Article 163 of Indian Constitution. So then in case of a flow test, how the voting will be conducted. Okay, so voting in India, normally if you have seen, there are multiple types of voting, that is through ballot you have, or division vote you have, or voice vote. These are the three types of vote which we come across. Okay, ballot voting, you know, when we cast our vote, okay, to elect our representatives, that is the most common thing. Okay, and when we use voice vote, that means the presiding officer will say the motion is introduced and how many people will support this motion, yes or no, or ayes or no, they will say no. So if the most of the people support yes, then the motion is said to be passed. Like that, this is taken by voice. Okay, that is voice vote we call. Then we have a division vote also. Okay, this division vote is mainly used here in case, okay, in case of any electronic gadgets, if they are used and they're taken, then we call it as a division vote. Okay, so this flow test can happen either in the ballot vote, voice vote, or division vote. Okay, so these three you can see. Division voting is using gadgets, slips, or anything, that we call division voting. Okay, in a voice vote, legislators are required to answer orally, and the main requirement is, if you can see, the presence of eligible candidates. Okay, so they have to, who are all eligible, they have to sit in the floor of the house and they have to vote. Okay, so that this flow test will decide actually whether the government is having majority or not, okay, in this context. So if you know what is the main concept of this floor test is, not only the people, okay, they're electing their representatives, but that representatives, if they have to remain in power, again they should enjoy the command enjoyed by the representatives who are elected by the people itself. So the democracy means, you know, for the people, of the people, and by the people. So this principle by the people is maintained through this voting process. That is why floor test is conducted by voting. Then it is a time for prelims practice question. Which of the following are the discretionary powers of the governor? You know, governor has constitutional discretion as well as situational discretion. So which of these is a discretion? So you can see here 4 options were given: sending a report to the President of India for imposing President's rule; second, appointing ministers; third, reserving certain bills passed by the state legislature for consideration of President of India; fourth, making the rules for conduct of business of the state government. So which of the following are correct? Okay, which following combinations are correct? Answer in the comment section. Then it is time for minds question. Discuss essential conditions for exercise of the legislative powers by the governor. Discuss the legality of re-promulgation of ordinances by the governor without placing them before the legislature. So this ordinance making part is also much debatable, so you have to answer for this question. Then as we have come to the end of the video, we have discussed in this video what is the concept of floor test, why this has been the reason for controversy and reason for many Supreme Court cases, and what are the constitutional provisions related to floor test, how the voting will be conducted in a floor test. All these are the things which we have discussed as part of this video. Thank you.